At long last, the House Select Committee on Benghazi has released its reports on the 2012 attack that killed 4 Americans at a U.S. diplomatic outpost. And I did say reports, more than one. Because with the Secretary of State at the time launching a presidential bid, there was never much chance that this probe would stay above the political fray. Witnessed last October's day-long grilling of Hillary Clinton by committee Republicans and defense by committee Democrats. Those Dems put out their report, sort of a pre-buttal to all of this, yesterday. Followed early this morning by the, quote, official version from the Republican committee leaders and a separate, harsher account from 2 Republican panel members. And before we get to the claims and the conclusions, all sides agree that Glenn Doherty, Ty Woods, Sean Smith, and U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens died heroically in service to their country. Glad we can say that, because sometimes that really gets lost in all the politics. The official report cites that an array of contributing factors, including a worsening security scenario in Libya overall, inadequate resources from the Departments of State and Defense, and bureaucratic inertia in Washington. It does not, however, lodge any new allegations of wrongdoing by Secretary Hillary Clinton. And that led to this exchange between the panel's chairman and my CNN colleague Dana Bash at a news conference you might have just seen live here about an hour ago.
The flip side of that could be that because you chose not to draw conclusions, does that suggest that you don't have the goods on placing any blame on the administration, specifically the woman who wants to be the president of the United States?
Dana, shockingly, that was not what the House asked me to do. Look at the resolution. The resolution doesn't mention Secretary Clinton. Speaker Boehner nor Speaker Ryan have ever asked me to do anything about 2016 presidential politics. Speaker Boehner asked me to find out what happened to 4 of our fellow citizens, and I believe that that is what I have done. You are welcome to read the report. I hope you will. I know you will. If you, at the end of reading that report, can conclude that it is about 1 person instead of about 4 people, I will be shocked.
I'm asking the opposite question. Do you believe, after doing this for 2 years, spending all of your time and millions of dollars, do you believe that based on this, that the American people should look at this and see that the woman who wants to be president has culpability?
I was with you until the last clause of your statement. I think the American people ought to look at it. They ought to look at it because fellow Americans died and fellow Americans were injured and fellow Americans went to heroic lengths to save other Americans. What conclusions they draw after reading it is up to them.
Do you disagree with Mr. Pompeo and Mr. Jordan? Because they do draw conclusions.
I wrote the report that I think is centered in the facts. I have a background of who, what, when, where. I don't have a background in the why. Y'all may have a background in the why. I don't. My job is to report facts. That's what I've done. You can draw whatever conclusions you want to draw.
The person doing the questioning, Dana Bash, joining me live now with what is the, I'm just going to count them up here, 8th congressional review of the Benghazi attack. We are also looking at investigations by the State Department's Accountability Review Board and interagency security assessment teams. Been a lot of questions asked, and I was not aware until I read this in the New York Times, Dana, that this effort to investigate has drawn on longer than the investigations into the assassination of JFK, the 9/11 attacks, Hurricane Katrina, and Pearl Harbor. So what's the headline?
It's hard
really?
to actually, it's exactly, it's hard to, here's the issue with this report, and what I was trying to get at in part with Chairman Gowdy there, is that it's an 800-page narrative. There's no one headline because Chairman Gowdy doesn't necessarily want there to be one. He wants people to sit down and read it and get a sense from all the interviews that they did, which in fairness to them, no one else has a lot of this. Chris Stevens, the ambassador who was killed, his emails and other transcripts and documents. He wants them to read it and conclude for themselves, and more importantly, for officials at the White House, at the State Department, at the Defense Department, where it is very clear that a number of things went terribly, terribly wrong, that they take it and use some of the recommendations that are in this report. However, the reason why it had a pause to answer your legitimate question, which is what's the headline, is that the headline is, I mean, as much as Trey Gowdy wants to say it's not about Hillary Clinton, the headline is that this committee spent 2 years and $7 million, taxpayer dollars, and it was through the prism, whether he likes it or not, of whether the woman who the President of the United States has culpability, and the answer is there are no bombshells, that there is no smoking gun on that issue. In fairness, they did uncover and reveal some other questions and answers to questions, like why was Chris Stevens even in Benghazi, given how incredibly dangerous it was and how poor his security protection was? Why was he even there? Some answers to that were, we found out through, again, emails and transcripts, that he thought he could actually get funding for a permanent consulate, which was his passion, so he went even though it was dangerous, and that Hillary Clinton, then Secretary of State, of course, his boss, had planned to go to visit Libya a month later, and they wanted a, quote, deliverable. So that's just one piece of new information. But just the fact that Trey Gowdy, the Republican chairman, was standing on the stage with two Republicans who didn't think that he went far enough, and they did their own separate report making political conclusions. And then on the other side, you have Democrats who are saying that he has gone too far and spending all this money for what purpose, going at him from the other side. So I think that kind of makes it very, very murky and makes their message and makes their conclusion hard to really pin down into one or two sentences.
I can pin it down into this sentence, $7 million to learn that government is big and bulky. How about that? And you know what? I'm just going to wrap it up with Trey's own words, Trey Gowdy's own words. You ready? He said this: Congress does a lousy job of conducting apolitical, nonpartisan investigations, and the American people deserve better. There's the headline, Dana. There's the headline from all of this. Thank you, Ms. Bash. Good job in there doing the questioning, as you always do.
Ashleigh.
Appreciate it. And a program note, Benghazi committee members Adam Schiff, Democrat, and Jim Jordan, Republican, are going to be guests on The Wolf Show next hour right here. CNN. Just days after the UK voted to leave the EU, banks are getting hammered again, and not the fun kind. This is in the billions, folks. Richard Quest is going to join me next to talk about the impact that has on them, but really on you in America, because it does cross the pond in a digital heartbeat.